Good afternoon. My name is Byron LaFerrier, and this will be a code review for the final project of the Computer Science Capstone course. In this video, I will go through and cover 3 different projects, talk about what they initially achieved, and how I plan to make changes to them. Then I will discuss how I believe these changes align with the course outcomes and highlight my personal skill set. Each project will be reviewed for 6 categories. They are as follows: structure, documentation, variables, arithmetic operations, loops and branches, and defensive programming. For Project 1, we have a full stack development project. In this course, we were responsible for designing a website for a mock company named Traveler Getaways. The project held me responsible for designing the database, backend, and front end of the website to be used by the company. I was asked to take a static website that only used hard-coded HTML and transform it into a dynamic single-page application. Let's dive into the review. As we can see, the code does completely and correctly implement design requirements. This is the static web page that we started off with, which turned into this. The base is well indented, showing modularity and separating function calls. There are no uncalled for procedures or unreachable code. Code uses handlebars to call external functions and reuse code to eliminate redundant sections. This is an example of it right here. We use the ng on initialize. We use ng for loops throughout also. The documentation section, the code is very poorly documented. To conform to best practices, I will need to come back through and comment out the code, so that is clear what is being achieved in each segment. For the variables section of the review, the variables are designed with easy and consistent naming throughout the project. All variables are assigned proper type consistency and casting. And again, the redundant variables are eliminated by using handlebar calls. For the arithmetic operations section of the code review, there really is no arithmetic operations being performed within the code. For loops and branches, we already touched on this, but the for loops are used throughout to help reduce redundancy in the code and calling this trip data that we have here whenever it is called for by using the variable trips. The loops are logically used to construct complete, correct, and properly nested codes. Loops handle trip information well by using the for loops that we mentioned. There are no switch or case statements within the code that need to be examined. And for defensive programming, the last section of our code review, we did have some authentication that was installed using JWT tokens. But other than that, we have all output variables were assigned to eliminate potential outside threat issues. Error traps are set up against the authentication process to protect against external device access. And then files and devices are left in the correct state. My plans for changes to this project: I would like to spend a little more time with this project to perfect it in my eyes. I would like to improve the source code and add some more pieces to the home pages aside from the travel searching page. The website already contained a banner that was unique to the company, so I would not alter that, but I would still like to make it more user-friendly in a similar fashion to the static website that we started off with. I intend to add more graphics and customer reviews to the page to get viewers more excited about traveling before actually choosing their destination and joining the page as a member. I will add security enhancements to protect against threats like the none hashing algorithm that allows hackers to pass a none variable into the SHA and trick it into thinking it does not need a JWT anymore. I also need to implement a token revocation process that will protect against tokens being stolen, while also limiting page browsing time to a certain period before cutting the user off and asking them to re-authenticate. For The course outcomes achieved by the changes. I believe that once these are completed, this artifact will demonstrate my ability to use well-founded and innovative techniques, skills, and tools in computing practices for the purpose of implementing computer solutions that deliver and accomplish industry-specific goals and developing a security mindset that anticipates adversarial exploits in software architecture and designs to expose potential vulnerabilities, mitigate design flaws, and ensure privacy and enhance security of data and resources. The skills that this highlights for me, I believe this shows an ability to learn and incorporate new concepts and ideas into existing projects and to enhance the quality of my own work. And it also shows an ability to receive constructive criticism and feedback, implement those changes following the feedback, and improve the overall project. The second enhancement that will be made for this final project was for the data structures and algorithms class that we took. In this project, we were asked to do research on different types of data structures and algorithms that were available for use and implement them into code. After this, we ran the code to study the difference in how long it took the program to process the data that was attached. One of the CSV files contained 6,000 files, and the other contained 78,000 files. The final proof of concept for this class asked us to review our own labs throughout the semester and pick specific ones that highlighted our understanding of different topics. Let's dive into the review for this project. So here we have the code base for the data structures and algorithms class. The code does a great job of creating the request design. It conforms to all industry standards. It uses storage efficiently by the use of constructors and destructors throughout. Here's a good example of it right here. We have a constructor for the hash table and then a destructor for the hash table. By doing this, it conforms to C++ industry standards because of the need for storage and memory to help programs run quicker. The documentation section, the code is clearly and adequately documented with an easy-to-read commenting style. And each module has clear commented sections showcasing consistency. For the variables section of our code review, all variables are initiated and assigned well. Proper type and consistency was used throughout the code base, and there's really no redundancy. We use polymorphism in this class to help call in classes from other pieces of other files of projects. That way we can make the necessary program shorter. So for this one, we call in the CSV parser.hpp, which is a header file that helps eliminate long, unnecessary code to read through. For the arithmetic operations, code does not use float values to compare bids when sorting. As we can see here, we use doubles. Float values can lose a lot of value in translation, so by using the double, we help eliminate some of this in our own code. For loops and branches, we have properly nested loops throughout. There are 2 switches contained within this project that we can see. One right here has cases and default value, and then the second switch in this one needs to come back and get edited out. We have cases, but we don't have a default value initiated. For the defensive programming, since this program is not meant for is meant only for internal use, the defensive programming will be skipped for this project. A couple plans for my changes on this project. I want to address the lack of default statement on switch number 2 that I just showed you. I'm going to revisit the final project, which is the proof of concept, and rework the paper. I'm going to add in some justified comparisons of structures and algorithms chosen versus the other alternatives. Pull this back up so you can see it really quick. So, here we have vectors. It doesn't really say why vector was the best choice for this when we instantiated it into our program. I really want to go back and add some great justifications for why we use vectors instead of arrays and stuff like that. And then I'm going to provide resources and visualizations to back up statements that are made in this paper as well. For the course outcomes achieved by changes, once this artifact is complete, I believe it will achieve the class objective of designing and evaluating computing solutions that solve a given problem using algorithmic principles and computer science practices, and also standards appropriate to its solution while managing the trade-offs involved in design choices and design, develop, and deliver professional quality oral, written, and visual communications that are coherent, technically sound, and appropriately adapted to specific audiences and different contexts. The skills I believe this will highlight throughout this project enhancement will show not only an understanding of the different concepts of computer science, but being able to explain them to non-technical crowds. And I believe it'll also show my ability to conduct research that will fortify evidence needed and used to justify decisions made on projects. The final enhancement in my computer science capstone class, I'm going to be reworking an intro to data mining project that was conducted. In this class, we were asked to take a data set for the company Bubba Gump Shrimp Co. and find ways that they could market to help increase future sales. We were given a database with 500 clients' information in it that needed to be cleaned and inspected. JMP was used to create graphical representations and perform cluster analysis and linear regressions to find statistically significant data to take to market. The main thing I noticed about this project is that it required someone with a great understanding of data mining to perform the operations. It was not fit to present to a non-technical crowd. Let's start the code review. This project was purely conceptual, so I'll show you what I have so far for the code. For the structure, we do have some well-structured documentation so far. Using Jupyter Notebook, it does a pretty good job of creating a natural spacing algorithm for you. Other than that, though, taking a JMP display output to Python API is going to require the implementation of many industry standards and best practices. For documentation, we don't have much done yet, but as you can see, we're making sure to get in some good commenting throughout the code base. By doing so, this is going to ensure that I can consistently follow along with what I was doing every time I log on to check out what I can enhance or add to the project. For the variables, for the previous usage, we really have some poorly defined variables in this program that could be reworked a little bit, maybe excluded from the end project. As you can see, we have like a married yes no variable here, and then we have a married binary also, which is really confusing if you're just looking over the data. You just see a 1 or 0, doesn't really tell you too much about what that data is supposed to represent. For the arithmetic operations within this project, there weren't really any mathematical operations performed, but when the project's complete, the projects won't use float values to compare anything or risk the potential loss of actual variable value by doing so. It will instead provide graphical representations to help with analysis. I pulled up a little example to show you what I intend to do with this. Maybe add like a little drop-down menu, sorting capabilities available from the dashboard as well. A little geolocation tag so that we can see pinpoint where people are located, pie chart capabilities, stuff like that. For the loops and branches section, in order to get these types of graphical representations to work, we're going to need to have really good for loops to help control the data processing, make sure that things don't pull up too slowly. And then for defensive programming, we're going to need to incorporate a layer of security to protect the API from outside intrusion by external devices. This is going to be done by creating authorized users and giving them passwords through the database that we set up. My plans for changes are to import the data provided to a MongoDB. Through this, I'm going to install Anaconda 3 and then set up a Jupyter Notebook. This should allow me to create all of my API and extensions that I just mentioned about using through the Jupyter Notebook. I'm going to create some scripts for the API interface to allow everything to work very well together. The course outcomes achieved by these changes I just mentioned. I believe that once this piece is completed, it will exemplify how I have achieved the course objective of employing strategic strategies for building collaborative environments that enable diverse audiences to support organizational decision making in the field of computer science. And then for the skills highlighted, I believe that this enhancement will showcase my ability to apply what I've learned in different projects within the field of computer science to help a wider variety of crowds understand what I'm trying to show them. And that's all. Thank you so much.